There we go. Beautiful. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the redo of the Alluring Bead Boutique's Cathedral Windows Earrings live tutorial. I tried this on Friday, and I tried using the Google Hangouts format on YouTube, and unfortunately, I couldn't get my camera to zoom in. The reason I used that one was because a really nice lady, Brenda Gibson, she just was offered to help moderate the live chat, which today I'm not doing the live chat right now because we're going to test drive that again. But what we're going to do is this simple little earring using flat chenille stitch. On my blog page at thealluringboutique.com, you click on the bead mat, and then down into my posts, there was one of my blog posts entitled Get Ready. He had the full materials list for these earrings, and then also for the ones that I'm going to show you guys today using a few different beads for a little bit more elegant look. Just want to show you quickly some of the items I'm working on for my website, patterns and jewelry. I love this bracelet. Check this out. Isn't that beautiful? That is a giant Bermuda blue 18 millimeter Rivoli sitting inside of here, and I just bezeled it with seed beads, and then I created these beautiful double-stranded straps for the bracelet. Kind of reminds me of, it's like a watch almost, and that's the look I was going for. I had to redo these straps like 3 times before I got them to work the way that I wanted to in my mind. And what I wound up doing was using some horseshoe protectors here and here in order for it to come out and look really good. So that's another project I'm working on. Here's something I'm really proud of. It's my first wire weave pendant bezel. And that's pretty sure that's a carnelian. I have a bunch of these little tumbled gemstones that my brother Stevie, who passed away years ago as a teenager, he had a little rock tumbling kit, they got for Christmas, and he tumbled all kinds of stuff. And I have a bunch of those little precious things that he did way back in the late 70s. Anyway, isn't that pretty? It's not perfect or anything by any means, but I'm really starting to practice now with the wire weaving, because that's something I'm planning on doing some tutorials on, and doing, of course, for my own business for the last half of this year. So there's also a blog post about the tools and things like that that you'll need if you want to participate in the wire weaving tutorials later on this year. Just make sure that, and I have a free PDF download of that tools, a tools sheet that you can download and refer to if you want to. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into these earrings, because I just want to make this as quick as I can since I've spent so much wasted time on the video already, and I know that's not your guys' fault, but I'm trying to limit the, and learn to organize my time better and all that. But what I'm going to use today is, this is some Nymo beading thread, size B, in the black, and I've waxed it heavily with some microcrystalline wax. And I have a class on Craftsy that I bought, and it's by a really famous beading lady. I can't think of her name right now, but I'll tell you guys about it later. I'll post it down in the notes below. But what she recommends, that microcrystalline wax, and I really like it because it doesn't leave any of that really thick residue on your beading thread like beeswax does. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to be using these 3 millimeter round druck beads in jet, and these are just checked glass beads. And I'm using these in place of the 80 seed beads, which I used in this earring. So I'm going to go ahead and dump out these. And for the full pair, you'll need 96 of these beads, but for one, you'll just need 48. And I'm just going to make the one today. For my accent beads, I'm going to be using these 2 millimeter druck beads in the jet hematite. And you'll need about 24 of these for the pair. 12 on each side. So I'm just going ahead and dumping my stuff out, guys. So Just give me a second, so I'm going to do it as I work. Then for my base beads will be, of course, these larger beads here, the black. And these, my other base beads are going to be the aluminum galvanized permanent finished 11OC beads by Toho. And you'll just need a few, maybe 1 to 2 grams of those for your earrings. And for the earrings, you're going to need 2 horseshoe wire protectors. These are 4mm. You'll need 2 ear wires. Choose the color choice of your liking. On this other pair that I have made, I used a gold wire protector and 22 karat gold plated ear wires. And I'll just go ahead and quickly show you guys the materials I used in the other earrings. For my base beads, I used the Silverline Matte Periwinkle Toho, which I love that color. It's kind of like a frosty, opaque looking color, and it's really, really pretty. And then also for the base beads, I used Toho 11Os in the green emerald luster. And those are these beads you see here on the base. And then the accent beads I used were some Toho C beads 11O in Ceylon Petunia. And I stitched these together using Fireline 6-pound in the crystal. So let me just slide all of the stuff out of my way so I'm not continuously getting my thread hung up. And we will go ahead and start. Okay, so get, 1 to 2 feet of beading thread onto your needle per earring. So I've got my needle threaded, and I'm using the same ones I use all the time anymore. I love the 11O pony needles, or size 11, excuse me, pony beading needles. And to start, we're just going to be doing flat chenille stitch. And you start flat chenille by picking up 4 of your larger base beads. You bring them down. Leave yourself a couple of inches of tail thread so you can use that to help you with your tension. Come back through your beads. And these drooks are a little hard to get through because they're kind of like, they kind of have a little bit of an oval shape, but they're still really pretty. And they're very uniform and great little beads to work with. So come through all 4 of the beads. And then I'm going to tie 2 overhand knots right here. And that will also help me to keep my project tension really good for the entire time that I'm working. Alright, so now I'm left-handed, so keep that in mind. And you might, you'll have to change the direction if you're right-handed. But so here I am coming out between these 2 sets of beads right here, and my tail and working thread are now tied. I'm going to move forward through 1 of my 4mm, or 3mm, I'm sorry. Pull my string and kind of tuck my knot up into that bead. Now here I'm going to add my first outside edge bead, and those are going to be my 11Os in the galvanized aluminum. So I'm picking up 1 of those, and I'm passing through my next droop bead. And now I'm going to pass through 1 more. Like this. See if I can zoom in just a little bit more. Okay. So now that's our first unit, and this is the outside edge of our beadwork. Next thing we're going to do is pick up 1 of our base 11Os and 4 of our 3mm base beads. We're going to bring that all down to the bottom of our beadwork, just like this. What we're going to do is we're going to skip that 11O. We're going to come through 2 of those beads, working from the tail end up. And you can see that we formed our next unit. Just that simple. I'm going to do this one more time because on these Cathedral window earrings, I went 3 units wide on my row. So I'm going to pick up one more 11/0, 4 more of my 3 millimeters. Bring that down. Now these units are going to flip around just a little bit for right now until we come back through and reinforce. But I'm going to skip over my 11/0 and come through the 2 3 millimeters, working from the tail end outwards. And your units may situate themselves a little bit away. All you have to do is put your finger down here, give a tug, and they will cinch back up against the rest of your beadwork. Alright, so now we're here at the other edge of our beadwork. We need to put an outside edge bead just like this end. So pick up one 11/0 and pass through the next bead. So here we have our first row. We're going to work back and reinforce and kind of attach this lower end so everything sits the way that we want it. So first thing we're going to do is pass through the next jerk bead and this 11/0 coming back towards ourselves. Pull your thread. Now you're not picking up any beads at this point. Come through the next beads at the bottom of that middle unit, 2 jerk beads, pull through, come through the next 11/0 sitting between units 1 and 2, and now I want you to come back just through the first jerk bead right here, because I'm sorry I forgot to turn off my notification sounds, but I'm just going to keep moving on, so I hope it really doesn't bother you guys too much. But anyhow, so here I am. I'm going to flip my work over because I'm left-handed. I'm going to get my tail thread up and out of my way a little bit here, so hold the phone. Alright, now, well, I got it crossed. Sorry, guys. Okay, so I'm going to try to move this tail thread just a little. Alright, so you can see that I'm coming out of this bead right here, heading in that direction. So I'm ready to start the next row. To do that, pick up one 11/0, one 3 millimeter, and one 11/0 onto your needle. Now you're coming out of this bead, going out towards the outside edge of your beadwork. I want you to take your needle and go through the bead on the outside edge of your beadwork in the other direction, like that. And I don't want to get my tail thread in there, which I just kind of did. Give me just 1 second here. You know, I think I'm just going to go ahead and end my tail thread because it is really seriously getting on my nerves already. Grab my scissors. Make sure that I'm only cutting my tail thread. Alright, pick my needle back up, try that again. So I've got those 3 beads on, and I did something wrong. Alrighty guys, sorry. I gotta come right back out of that jerk bead right there, and hopefully I won't run into a big problem with looping into my other thread. These little beads, they are just a little bit of a pain in the butt to work with. And I did make a problem. Alright, you guys are just going to have to watch me because this is live, but I've got to pull this out. There we go. Now, let's try that again. We're going to start row 2 by picking up an 11/0, a 3 millimeter, and an 11/0. And what we're going to do is skip that 11/0. And I'm sorry that I messed it up, but that's how it goes. We're going to come through the 3 millimeter and the 11/0 that we just added onto our string. Then we're going to go up through this jerk bead here on the outside edge, going away from ourselves. And we're going to pull that through. And this is what the work will look like. You'll have this little tail looking thing sitting right here. And that's what we want. Now we've got to work our way around this unit that we're currently in. So come through that 11-0 on the outside edge, and come through your next two beads of this unit, which are the top two beads on the unit above. And I'm going to flip around just a little bit so my needle angle is good for me. Now I'm coming out of this bead, this little 3mm right here. And I need to get myself down into this next 3mm of that same unit and the 11-0 of the little tail of beads I just added, and pull my thread. Now we're in position here to finish this unit of beads. To do that, just pick up 3 more of your 3mm or 8-0 beads, whichever you're using. We're going to come through this 3mm, but we're going to come through from the outside edge towards ourselves, and we're only coming through that one bead. Now when we pull, you'll have to finagle your unit just a little bit so that your accent bead is here on the outside edge, and we need to get into position to add our next unit by coming through the very next 8-0 or 3mm that we just added on that unit, and only that bead. Pull your thread, and then you can situate your beadwork so that your units are nice and neat and lined up really nice. You don't have any slack in your thread areas here to show exposed thread later on. Alright, so there's our first unit. We need to make the middle unit right here. We're going to pick up an 11-0, a 3mm, and an 11-0, just like we did when we started this first unit. Now this time, we don't skip any beads or anything. This time we're going to do exactly what I tried to show you before and just come up through that bottom bead of the previous row, going away from yourself. And pull it in. Sorry, I just kind of slung my work all over the universe, but when it gets pulled into shape, this is what it'll look like. We just have this little stretch of beads from here to here. Then we have to move through the unit again. We don't need to go through this 11-0, okay? We're just going to go through the beads of the actual unit that we're moving through right now. So that's the droop bead at the top, the other droop bead at the top, and once again we have to come down through the bottom bead and the 11-0 of the little 3-bead sequence we just added. So you're coming through those 2 beads, pull the string into position. Now we're going to complete the unit by picking up 3 of the little 3mm or 8-0 beads. We're going to come back through this larger bead towards ourselves. We're going to wiggle our beads and tighten up and snug everything into position. And we're just going to pass through that one bead next in line. Alright, so we need to add one more unit on this row. So we're going to pick up 11-0, one of our larger beads, and an 11-0. We're going to come up through that bottom bead on the previous row of our third unit. Pull those beads in. Move through the top bead. The next top bead. This time, because we're working on the outer edge, we're going to come through our 11-0 here on the outside edge. And when we come down, we're going to go through the one larger bead and the 11-0 bead that we just added. We're going to complete the unit by picking up 3 of our larger beads, coming back through that larger bead in the 3-bead sequence towards ourselves. Wiggle our beads in, snugging our beading thread. We're going to move through 1 bead, and now we're going to add our accent bead on this side. So just pick up an 11-0 and move down through the bottom bead of the unit you just added right here. So now we're going to work back across, reinforce, and attach these beads to our connecting beads. So come through your next larger bead and the 11-0 sitting between the units. Come through your next bottom bead, then the next bottom bead and the 11-0 between these 2 units. And now remember that we only need to pass through 1 bottom bead of this unit here. And so there we have our first 2 rows. Now, when we start the row, so we're on starting row 3, pick up a 11-0, a larger bead, and an 11-0. Bring them down. Skip that 11-0, come through the larger bead, the 11-0, and this outside edge bead on the previous unit going away from yourself. There's our little tail. We're going to come through that outside edge 11-0. Then we're going to move through these 2 beads at the top of this unit. Sorry, I've jiggled my camera just a little. Coming through this top bead, not the 11-0, just the 1 bead. And then we're going to come down through the lower bead and the 11-0. Now I'm going to pick up my 3 larger beads to finish this unit. I'm going to come through this larger bead towards myself. Just the larger bead, none of the 11-0s. Then I'm going to pull my beads into place and snug my thread up. Then I need to come just through this larger bead right here, the top of my new unit that I just created, and pull it into position. Alright, next unit, 11-0, larger bead and 11-0. And we're going to go up through the closest bottom bead of that previous row unit, right there, away from herself. Then we're going to come through the top 2 beads of that unit. With the 8-0s, it's really easy to get through both of those at the same time. With these round, ovally looking drip beads, it's easier just to take it one at a time. Now, when I come down through the bottom bead of that unit, I need to make sure I go through that first 11-0 at the same time. So we're coming through those 2 beads so we can finish this unit. I'm going to snug my thread up, pick up my 3 larger beads, come back through this larger bead right there. That's the first bead of my new unit, towards myself. Pull my beads into position. Then I have to move through that bead of my new unit. One bead. And I'm ready to add my last unit of this row. I'm picking up an 11-0, a larger bead, and an 11-0. Going up through that bead there, the last unit in my previous row, coming across my two top beads, going through my 11-0 here on the outside edge, coming down through the last bead on that unit and my 11-0 seed bead of the new unit I'm creating. And I just got to pick up my last three larger beads, come back through that larger bead towards myself that we just added as part of our last unit of row 3. And there we go. I've got everything in place. I need to move through the one bead here on the outside edge, pick up my little 11-0, pass through the next two beads at the bottom of the unit I just created, snug my thread, come through this 11-0 sitting between those two units, and we're going to work along the outside edge here. Go down one, come up through that second larger bead in your 11-0 between the two units, and then we just have to move forward one more bead and we can do our last row. Alright, so we have one more row to go. Pick up your 11-0, your larger bead, your 11-0, and drop them down. Skipping over that 11-0, go through the larger bead, the 11-0, the larger bead of your previous unit on the outside edge, and that outside 11-0. Work through the top two beads of that unit on the previous row, just like we've been doing. Then come down through the bottom bead of the unit and the 11-0 in our new unit. Pick up your three larger beads to complete the unit. Come back through this 3mm or 8/0 towards yourself and pull. Position your beads, snug your thread, come through that next larger bead right there. (11-0), larger bead 11-0, up through the bottom bead of the middle unit, away from yourself. Move through your top two beads. Come through that bottom bead of the previous unit and the 11-0 of your new unit you're adding. Pick up three. Come through just the larger bead where you started your new unit. Snug your beads around. Then move through that bead of your new unit, the top bead of your new unit, just like that. And then one more time. 11-0, larger bead, 11-0. Up, away from yourself, into the previous row, around the 2 top beads of that unit. Come through the 11-0 on the outside edge. Then move down through the bottom bead of that unit and the 11-0 of your new unit. Pick up your last 3 larger beads. Come through that larger bead you've already added for this unit. Snug your beadwork up. Move through the next top bead. Pick up your outside edge. See if I can pick one up. Come through the next bead. And we got our outside edge beads sitting all on all 4 of our rows. Now before we move through and secure all this beadwork, we're going to add a bead on the outside edge of this row. So we're going to pick up an 11-0. Then we're going to move through our next drook or 8-0 in that 11-0 that's connecting the 2 units. Come out 1 bead of the middle unit. Get another 11-0 on your needle. Come through the next larger bead and your 11-0 between those 2 units. Move outwards 1 larger bead. Pick up 1 more 11-0 and plunk it right in between those 2 by passing through the next larger bead. So there we have most of our base done. We just need to put some accent beads here at the top. So to do that, we need to move to this end of the beadwork. It's really easy to do. We're coming out of this bead, going upwards in this direction. All you got to do is come through your 11-0 and your next larger bead and 11-0. So you're going to move through 3 beads just like that. Without adding any beads to your needle, we're just positioning. We're going to come up through the drook and the 11-0 of the next unit in this column. We're going to go down through the larger bead in the 11-0, up through, well, I just went through my larger bead there. When I go down, I want to make sure to hit that 11-0, that larger bead, and that 11-0. We're almost there, so we're going to go up through the next drook bead on the first unit of that column, in the 11-0 on the outside edge. We're just going to come through the very next larger bead at the top of this column. And here's where we're going to pick up our 11-0. Come through the drook and the 11-0, or the 8-0, excuse me, and the 11-0. Move up 1. Pick up. Move down 2. Move up 1 more. And add the last 11-0. When you're coming through this last outside edge, remember to pass through your 11-0. And we're going to work our way back up to this 11-0 in the middle column. To do that, just pass through your drook beads on the inside of this unit you're working at. Come through the 2 beads, the larger beads. Now come through your connecting 11-0. Then just move up into that bead at the top of your middle unit. and then pass through the 11-0. Like that. Since I'm here, I'm going to add some accent beads down this middle column first. Then I'm going to add my findings. To add the accent beads, we're done with our larger beads, and we're done with the 11-0 base 11-0s. Now, we're going to use the accent beads, which in this one, once again, were the 11-0 Ceylon Petunia. But for this one, I'm using these 2mm jet hematite droop beads. Alright, so I'm coming out of this bead in the middle. I'm going to take my needle and pass straight down through the connecting bead in the same column, which is that 11-0 silver. And I'm going to pull, and that little droop bead is going to position itself right in the middle of that unit. It's a little difficult to see, but it's in there. Pick up another one of my accent beads, come right straight down through the next 11-0 on my base. I'm going to do that one more time. When I'm doing these accent beads, I don't want to pull my thread so tight that it pulls my beadwork into a mess. So make sure you're holding your beadwork nice and flat as you add your accent beads. And so on this next one, we're going to pick up one of our little accent beads. We're going to come through this 11-0 on the outside edge of our middle column up here. I'm going to come through, use my thumb to put my little bead into position, then I'm going to flatten my beadwork again. Alright, so this is what I have so far. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and show you how to add your findings. So you're coming out of this middle bead right here. Pick up your wire protector and come through the open end of the horseshoe up either side, just like that. You can let it drop down to your beadwork or relatively close to your beadwork. We'll cinch it in so it doesn't really matter. But now I want you to come down through the other side of the wire protector back towards the beadwork. When you pull your thread, make sure it lands in that little groove right there at the top of that horseshoe protector and sits itself in that groove. Now, I'm going to pick up your ear wire, and my accent beads are here. Let me zoom out just a little. My accent beads are on this side of my earring. So when I drop this ear wire down, I want it to come off rounded like that so that my earring hangs correctly. So I'm just going to pass through the loop of that ear wire, and I'm going to let that drop right into my horseshoe protector, just like that. And when I pull my thread, you can see my horseshoe protector just snugged itself nice and neatly right up against my beadwork. This next step will make it even more secure. My thread, working thread, is on this side towards me of that bead. So to pull everything into position, I need to come through that 11-0 C bead again from the opposite side towards myself. And you can see there how that really snugged everything into place, just like that. Now I'm going to reinforce this little loop setting here by coming back up through my wire protector, away from myself, on the same side as my working thread. We have to pass through the loop of our ear wire, and we're going to come down the wire guardian on the opposite side towards ourselves. And when we pull, we want to make sure that thread goes into that little groove right there. Then we're just simply going to come back through that 11-0 C bead coming back towards ourselves once again. I'm going to wiggle my wire protector just a little. There we go. And so now I have my finding onto my little earring. But I need to finish my accent beads. So I'm coming out of this 11-0 to the left. So I'm going to move towards the left through the next droop bead on the same unit. And I'm going to come through that 11-0 also that's sitting right there in the middle of those two units. Pull snug, but not too snug. Come up through the outside edge droop bead of the next unit and the 11-0, like that, of your next column. So when I bead with this nylon thread, if my this part of my thread up here starts trying to slip dangerously towards coming out of the needle, I just grab a piece of my wax and I hold my thread here, not at the needle, because you can damage your thread that way, but just grab a hold of your thread here and run just a little more wax over it. Now make sure it stays where it needs to and doesn't come out of the needle. Alright, so we're going to add these accent beads down this column. So just say, pick up one of your accent beads, come straight down through the little 11-0 connector bead on units in the column. Come through, pick up another one, come through the next one. Don't get hung on your ear wire. Let me zoom out just a little. Alright. And once again, as I pull these into position, I'm going to hold my beadwork flat. Pick up another accent bead. This is the third one. Come down through my next 11-0. Sit my bead right in the middle of that little unit, right there. This time when I go to add my last one, I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to come through this outside edge bead, but I'm going to go back towards the center because I need to work over to this column. So come back towards the center through that 11-0. Make sure that you pull it into position, centered on this last unit. And we need to move over to this column, so just come through your next larger bead here in the 11-0 in the middle, those two beads. And we're going to move up through the outside edge of this unit on the middle column. So I'm coming through the larger bead in the 11-0 there at the outside edge. Do the same thing one more time. I'm going to come down through that next larger bead on the outside edge of this middle unit and try to get through the 11-0 too. I didn't make it through the 11-0 at the same time, so we'll just take it one bead at a time. Now I'm going back into this very last unit here on the column I need to add my accent beads to. Going through that jerk bead, and then I'm coming through the 11-0 sitting here at the outside edge. And now I'm into position to add my last accent beads. Go ahead and flatten my work out just a little. Now I'm going to pick up my accent bead, come down through the connector bead in the column, Position my bead. Repeat that. Two more times here. Pick up a 2 millimeter or 11/0. Moving through the connector bead. Now I have one more to add. So on this last one, it doesn't really matter which way I come through this bead. So I'm just going to go, I think I'm going to go towards the outside edge. Then we're going to have a little discussion. Alright, so this is what I have completed. And it's pretty cute. You'll notice the difference that it makes using different size beads. These are 8/0 beads, seed beads, and these are the 3 millimeter beads. And it makes a really big difference on the earring. Two things I want to mention about that. First of all, I like this a lot better. While this was a great concept, I really didn't care for the larger beads. It's up to you how you want to proceed. Now, another quick thing I want to talk about is on these earrings, I added the accent bead on both sides of the beadwork. In order to do that, when you're already exiting from this one of your outside edge beads at the top or bottom of your column, it's really easy to just flip your work over and go through and add accent beads down this column in the same way, just picking up one, going through the 11/0, pick up one, pick up one. Then when you get to the last one, when you add your last one here, you want to make sure to pass your needle towards the center column so that you can just come work your way through, get into that bead, work on down to this end, pass your needle towards the last column that you need to embellish, move through your beads till you hit right there, then add your last accent beads. I'm not going to do that because, like I said, I really didn't care for the way that my earring came out with the larger beads. I like it much better with the 8/0 beads. But at this point, once you've added all the accent beads that you want to, all you really need to do is tie some half-hitch knots. So you can see that I'm exiting right here between this 11/0 and that larger bead. Just pass your needle through the unit, underneath, between the two beads, pull nice and slow till you get that little loop. Stick your needle back through that little loop. And when you pull the knot down, this is a half-hitch knot, make sure it goes between that 11/0 and that droop bead where your actual working thread was positioned. And you'll want to move through a couple more beads and just do the best you can with whichever beads you're using. Pass through the next bead in the 11/0 and do the same thing on this side of this 11/0. Go right in through my unit, make a little loop, grab it with my needle, and then make sure that knot falls between that 11/0 and that larger bead, just like that. Then end the thread. So here's something I'd like to say about this stitch. I love this stitch. It's really supple. It worked out great in this smaller form for these cute little earrings, and I really love that. I totally do. But for the larger beads, I'm going to say I like it much better as a bracelet. Here's one that I did when I first learned this stitch. They made this beautiful hippie cuff bracelet. Isn't that really cool? I love it. So on this one I used some 8/0, just cheesy grape colored Chinese seed beads basically. Or actually they're check glass seed beads, but then I used 11/0s that are crystal clear with the same color lined on the inside of those little 11/0s in there. And I didn't add any accent beads. So all you see here are the outside edge beads and the connector beads of the 11/0s. But it really feels so super cool when it drapes on your skin. This is a great draping stitch. So far, the only things I've made with it are these earrings and these 2 bracelets. This one I used coral, and then I used some of the, Midnight Rainbow sea beads, which are the, the jet black with the high AB finish on them. These ones are the Mardi Gras ones, or the New Orleans ones. So they have like a goldish hue to them, as well as like a little bit of the AB finish. But they're called New Orleans or Mardi Gras, something like that. They make a really pretty bracelet. It feels so good on your skin. It's so drapey and supple. So that's just some ideas for you. Now, I'm going to go ahead and end this video, because this really took me a lot more effort than, what I'm trying to accomplish with the YouTube Live. But what I want to say is, make sure, if you want to participate in the live events, and on the next one, keeping my fingers crossed, I'm going to have the participation chat going at the same time, and hopefully I'll have someone in there to help me moderate. But if I don't, that's okay too. We can just do a little chat at the beginning, maybe take a break in the middle of the next video and do a little chat there, and then do a Q&A at the end. So that's what my plans are. But if you want to participate and you want to see what the project is, pardon me, if you want to see what the project is and get the full materials list ahead of time so that you can be ready, you'll need to follow my blog and or sign up for my newsletter at thealluringbeadboutique.com. Click on the bead mat to follow the blog. Click on the contact page to sign up for the newsletter. If you sign up for the newsletter, you're going to get coupon codes and lots of extra freebies for, well, sorry guys. That's one of the hospitals calling about the $300 and something thousand worth of bills my son currently has from everything that happened to him earlier in the spring. Anyway, skip that. If you sign up for the newsletter, I give a coupon code every month for percentages off or free shipping. I'm really working on getting a lot of patterns done for the second half of the year. That's where my focus is going to be. But make sure that you sign up and subscribe. Follow my blog so you can keep up with the live events. Alright guys, so that's Detrina from the Alluring Bead Boutique. I'm going to go ahead and sign off. I'll get this thing edited just a little bit and put the information cards into it and everything, and as soon as it processes on YouTube, so it's up there for you guys to reference anytime you want. Alright, well, that's it for now. Y'all take care and have a great and wonderful day, and I'll be seeing you really, really soon. Thanks for being with me.